Hello viewers and my dear students. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Zahida Begum Sheikh, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Government Degree College, Hayat Nagar. Today lesson will give a clear outline of the developments of the national commissions. In fact, this lesson highlights the necessity for understanding the commission's concept and identify rights and to enforce them effectively. Incidentally, it also discusses the various constitutional aspects, including the fundamental rights guarantees by the Constitution of India. The special focus of this lesson, however, would be on the national commissions. Apart from that, this lesson will be give complete picture of the constitutional bodies and SC/ST Act 2015 Act and 2018 Act and national commissions for SC/ST, BC, minority, women, child and human rights commissions also. Today I am going to discuss about national commission in India, national commissions in India. As part of this, we shall try to discuss different commissions in India like Scheduled Caste Commission, Scheduled Tribe Commission, Backward Class Commission, and National Commission for Women, and National Commission for Minority, and National Commission for Human Rights. These all are a part of BA second year syllabus and very important concepts for commissions in India. So, let us start the introduction. Commissions are constituted by the Government of India either on an ad hoc or permanent basis to guide advice to provide solutions to various issues coming under the concerned ministry. Before we move on national commissions, we should know what is constitutional statutory and what is statutory and quasi judicial and judicial, and what is extra constitutional bodies and what is executive bodies. So have a look on my explanation. There are multiple types of government bodies in India that we hear on a daily basis in the news. They are very important for the country since many of them play vital role in Indian polity and economy. In this context, you can read about constitutional and statutory, quasi-judicial, judicial and regulatory bodies. So, what is constitutional bodies? Constitutional bodies are important bodies in India that derive their powers and authorities from the Indian Constitution. So they are specifically mentioned in the Constitution, meaning they have dedicated articles. Any change in the mechanism of these bodies would require a constitutional amendment. So next one, statutory bodies. These are non-constitutional bodies as they do not find any mention in the Constitution. They are also important bodies due to their function. They are created by an act of parliament. They called statutory since statutes are laws made by the parliament or the legislature. So since these bodies derive their power from statutes or law made by the parliament, they are known as statutory bodies. For example, SEBI is a statutory body, means the Securities and Exchange Board of India. It was set up in 1988 and was given statutory powers in 1992 through the passing of the SEBI Act 1992. Other examples also National Human Rights Commission and UIDAI, means Unique Identification Authority of India, and Central Vigilance Commission, that is CVC, and Central Information Commission, etc. So if we focus, what is regulatory bodies? Regulatory bodies are public or governmental agencies responsible for exercising autonomous authority over some area of human activity in a regulatory or supervisory capacity. Some regulatory bodies are independent, which means they are independent from any branch of the government. They are set up to enforce safety and standards. They have the charge of establishing norms of a particular area of human activity and also supervising the bodies employed in the activity. They are established by legislative acts. Examples of regulatory bodies are, that is one SEBI, Securities and Capital Market, and RBI, and NABARD, and IRDAI means Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, and PFRDA, that is Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority, and also NHB, and also SIDBI, and also TRAI. TRAI means Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, and also Central Board of Film Certification and Censorship, and Bureau of Indian Standards, and Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, and also BCCI. These bodies are constitutional and non-statutory. They are not mentioned in the constitution. They are also not established by an act of parliament. They are formed by executive resolution or action, which means that they are formed by the government's action only. They can be converted into a statutory body by enacting a law. For example, the UIDAI was made into a statutory body after it was established by enacting a new law. So, what is the examples of executive bodies? The now Defund Planning Commission, the Niti Aayog, National Commission, etc. are examples of the executive bodies. And judicial bodies are courts in India. Their chief objective is to provide justice by following the laws of the land. And quasi judicial body can be an individual or body with powers resembling a court of law. They can adjudicate and decide penalties on the guilty. They are different from judicial bodies in that their field is limited compared to a court. They can form on a matter pending in court by court order if the court considers it necessary. The court reserves the right to appointment members of such a body. They can be tribunals for a specific domain or like an arbitrator. Quasi judicial bodies have adjudicating powers in such matters as breach of discipline, trust in money matters or otherwise, conduct rules. Their authority is limited to specific areas like financial markets, land use zoning, public standards, and employment law, specific set of regulations of an agency. Decisions of quasi judicial body are often legally enforceable under the laws of jurisdiction. Examples of quasi judicial bodies are National Human Rights Commission, National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, Competition Commission of India, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, and also Appellate Tribunals for Electricity and Railway Claims Tribunal, Intellectual Property Appellate Tribunal, and Banking Ombudsman, etc. So, if we focus on what is the difference between judicial and quasi judicial bodies, judicial decisions are bound by precedent in a common law, whereas quasi judicial decisions are generally not. Judicial decisions may create new laws, but quasi judicial decisions are based on existing law. Quasi judicial needn't adhere the strict judicial rules. Quasi judicial bodies can hold formal hearings only if they are mandated to do so as per their governing laws. So, if you focus our next slide, that is National Commission. Composition of National Commission. Each National Commission consists of a person who is qualified to be a judge of Supreme Court, who shall be the president, and two other members who shall be persons of ability, integrity, and standing. So this is the composition as usually as all different national commissions in India. So, all national commissions means National Commissions for Human Rights, National Commission for Women, National Commission for Minority, and National Commission for Backward Classes, and National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes, and National Commission for Child. We will discuss all these commissions in this class. So, first we will move on National Commission for Scheduled Castes, that is NCSC. It is a constitutional body that works to safeguard the interest of the scheduled castes in India. It seeks to offer the scheduled caste community protection from discrimination and exploitation. as well as providing facilities to uplift the SC community. Article 338 of the Constitution of India deals with this commission. Important constitutional bodies are significant segment of the BA second year syllabus. The National Commission for Scheduled Castes is very important body in India as it deals with the scheduled castes and their development. So, what is the functions of this commission? Monitoring and investigating all issues concerning the safeguards provided for the SCs under the Constitution, enquiring into complaints relating to the deprivation of the rights and safeguards of the scheduled castes, and taking part in and advising the central or state governments with respect to the planning of the socio-economic development of the scheduled castes, and also regular reporting to the president of the country on the implementation of these safeguards, and also recommending steps to be taken to further the socio-economic development and other welfare activities of the scheduled castes. Any other function with respect of the welfare, protection, development and advancement of the SC community. So, National Commission for Scheduled Castes composition, currently the fifth National Commission for Scheduled Caste is in progression. National Commission's chairman is Dr. Ram Shankar Katharia. Apart from the chairman, there is a vice chairman and three other members. So, chairman is Ram Shankar Katharia, Murugan vice chairman, and Kastabula K. Ramulu is member, Yogendra Paswan is member, and Swaraj Vidwan is also member. So, this commission formed 19th February 2004, it is 16 years ago, proceeding commission, this is preceding commission, and headquarters is New Delhi, and this commission is National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes 1978 preceding commission. That's why I discussed that this is preceding commission. If we focus on detailed history of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, initially the Constitution provided for the appointment of a special officer under Article 338. The special officer was designated as the Commissioner of Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. In 1987, the government, upon pressure from various members of parliament, decided to form a multi-member commission for the welfare of the SCs and STs instead of a one-member commission. The 65th Amendment to the Constitution replaced the one-member system with the multi-member National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes. The Constitution Act 1990, that is 65th Amendment, amended the Article 338 of the Constitution. The newly formed National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes consisted of 5 members apart from the chairman and vice chairman of the commission. The 89th Amendment in 2003 replaced this commission with the following with effects from 2004. National Commission for Scheduled Caste, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. The first National Commission for Scheduled Caste was formed 2004 under the chairmanship of Suraj Bhan. So, present commission chairman is Ram Shankar Katharia. I already discussed about the functions also. So, just focus on our next slide, that is National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. The Constitution of India does not give any definition for scheduled tribes. However, with the formation of a National Commission of Scheduled Tribes (NCST), various acts like Protection of Civil Rights (PCR Act 1955) and SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities (POA Act on 1989) amended in 2015 and its rules 2016 have got recognition. So, what is the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes? The National Commission for Scheduled Tribes is a constitutional body that was established by the Constitution 89th Amendment Act 2003. The Commission is an authority working for the economic development of scheduled tribes in India. The NCST, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, is dealt with Article 338. Earlier there was only one commission which was for both the scheduled tribes and scheduled caste. In 2004, after the 89th Constitutional Amendment Act, the NCST, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, was established by a bifurcating the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes into the NCST and the NCSC, that is National Commission for Scheduled Caste. This amendment replaced the National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes with two distinct commissions, which are National Commission for Scheduled Caste (NCSC), we will already discussed in NCSC, and National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. So, what is the definition of scheduled tribes? According to Article 366(25) of the Constitution, scheduled tribes are those communities that are scheduled in accordance with Article 342 of the Constitution. Also, Article 342 of the Constitution says that the scheduled tribes are the tribes or tribal communities or part of or groups within these tribes and tribal communities which have been declared as such by the President through a public notification. So, according to the 2011 census, the scheduled tribes account for 104 million, representing 8.6% of the country's population. These scheduled tribes are spread throughout the country, largely in the forest and hilly regions. The essential characteristics of these communities are primitive traits, geographical isolation, distinct culture, and shy of contact with the community at large, economically backwards. As in the case of SCs, the plan objective of the empowering the tribals is being achieved through a three-pronged strategy of social empowerment, economic empowerment, and social justice. So, if you focus the composition of National Commission for Scheduled Caste (NCST), the NCST consists of one chairperson, one vice chairperson, and three full-time members. Out of the three members, there should compulsorily be one lady member. All the members of the commission have a tenure of 3 years. And the present chairman is Nandakumar Sai. So, what is the functions of National Commission for Scheduled Tribes? National Commission for Scheduled Tribes investigates and monitors all matters related to safeguarding the provisions of our scheduled tribes under the Constitution and evaluating the working of those safeguards. And National Commission for Scheduled Tribe will inquire into specific complaints concerned with the deprivation of rights and safeguards of the STs. The Commission participates and advises on the planning processes for the socio-economic development of the STs and also evaluates the progress of the various developmental activities. The President will be presented with an annual report of the working of those safeguards. Apart from annual reports, other reports also will be submitted to the President as and when necessary. The Commission will also give reports on what measures are to be taken by both the central and various state governments for effecting execution of the measures and safeguards for the protection and development and welfare of the scheduled tribes. Other functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes are related to welfare, protection and development and advancement of the STs. Who is the present chairman? I already discussed that. If you focus on 2007, that is Urmila Singh, and 2010, that is Oraon. And now at the age of 71, Nandakumar Sai became the successor of Rameshwar after his tenure ended in 2016. Nandakumar Sai is a senior tribal leader and an ex-parliamentarian from Chhattisgarh. So, who appoints SC/ST Commission? The President of India appoints them. And scheduled caste, if you focus, the main important and major act, that is I already discussed in introduction, that is Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Amendment Act. So, This act 2018, this act SC/ST Act 1989, also called SC/ST Act, as can be understood by the name itself, is an act to prevent atrocities against people belonging the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The act also introduces special courts and exclusive special courts to run trials of such offences that are made against SC and ST people. In recent development, the Supreme Court has upheld the constitutional validity of Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Amendment Act of 2018 on February 10, 2020. So, if you focus, what is the SC/ST Amendment Act 2018? The SC/ST Amendment Bill 2018 was passed by the Parliament on 9th August 2018. The important features of this act is Section 18A of SC/ST Act. It nullifies the conduct of a preliminary inquiry before registration of an FIR or to seek approval of any authority prior to arrest of an accused. Person who has been accused of atrocities against SC/ST people will be excluded from the provision of anticipatory bail. The SC/ST Act gives the investigation officer independence to arrest the accused person or people without any approval from any authority. So, what is the background of SC/ST Act 2018 Supreme Court judgment? A petition was filed against SC/ST Amendment Act 2018 demanding to strike down the said act, as the petitioners claimed the act was against Article 14 and 19 and 21 of the Indian Constitution. Article 14 means provides for equality before law or equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. Article 19 provides freedom of speech and expression, and Article 21, according to Article 21, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to a procedure established by law. The petitioner demanded that power of arrest which is given to the IVO should only be exercised after complying with all the safeguards listed under Section 41 and 41A of the Criminal Procedure Code, such as IVO means investigation officer. So, the safeguards is scrutiny, credible and information, and just and reasonable procedure. And the Supreme Court judgments are March 2008, two-judge bench decided that no atomic arrest can be done by the IO and investigation officer, and it also continued to provision of anticipatory bail for the accused. September 2019, Supreme Court three-judge bench restored the provision of automatic arrest. And February 2020, the following judgment came that nullified the effect of March 18 judgment, and Supreme Court upheld the validity of the SC/ST Act. Pre-arrest bail should be granted only in extraordinary situations where a denial of bail would mean miscarriage of justice. Provision of anticipatory bail cannot be accessed by the accused. IVO, I discussed many times that IVO is investigation officer. Investigation officer, that is IVO, can arrest accused without any approval from senior police officials, and the FIR filed can be quashed by the court. Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Amendment Act 2015 brought stringent provisions to SC/ST Act 1989. The SC/ST Amendment Act 2015 was brought to effect in January 2016. Key features of the SC/ST Act 2015 are Scheduled Tribes and Scheduled Caste Prevention of Atrocities Amendment Act 2015, or it's also called as POA also, has brought a few definitions or new features in the act that made clear judgments on what can be an offence under it. The act is taken as a safeguard to people or group of people belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The Act has defined offences of atrocities which can put a person behind bars. These are related to physical atrocity, that is, tonsuring of head and mustache, and verbal atrocities, acts that are derogatory to the dignity of the members of SC/STs, and atrocities related to insults, that is, garlanding with chappals, slippers, and social atrocity, denying access to irrigation facilities or forest rights, and dispose or carry animal carcasses or to dig graves, using or permitting manual scavenging, and Devadasi, dedicating a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe woman as Devadasi, and atrocity related to castes, abusing in caste name, and atrocity against women, that is, perpetrating witchcraft atrocities, and social and economic atrocity against SC/ST, that is, imposing social or economic boycott, and atrocities in politics, that is, preventing scheduled caste and scheduled tribe candidates from filing of nomination to the contest elections, and hurting a scheduled caste and scheduled tribes woman by removing her garments, and also forcing a member of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes to leave house, village or residence, and also atrocities based on religious beliefs, that is, defiling objects sacred to members of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and also touching or using words, acts or gestures of a sexual nature against members of SC and ST. The offences like hurt, grievous hurt, intimidation, kidnapping, etc., against a person or persons belonging to say SC/ST can attract imprisonment of 10 years or less under Prevention of Atrocities Act (POA) Act. However, only those offences are taken under POA Act which are already inscribed in Indian Penal Code IPC Act. The other important features of SC/ST 2015 are exclusively special courts are established. Exclusive special public prosecutors are specified who will run the trial of offences committed under POA Act. The exclusive special public prosecutors are introduced to enable speedy and expeditious disposal of cases. Special courts and exclusive special courts are given power to take direct cognizance of offences, and so are they required to complete the trial of the cases within 2 months wherever possible from the date of the charge sheet filing. So, a chapter named Rights of Victims and Witness has been added under the POA Act. The term willful negligence of public servants at all levels has been defined under the Act. Starting from the registration of a complaint under POA Act, and covering aspects of dereliction of duty officer under this Act are defined under willful negligence. The court has been given freedom to presume the offence of the accused was acquainted with the victim or his family. That means the court will presume that the accused was aware of the caste or tribal identity of the victim unless proved otherwise. So, some questions related in the SC/ST of Indian Constitution or schedules of the Indian Constitutions are: what is SC/ST Act 2018? The act that safeguards the persons belonging to SC/ST from the atrocities. The act rules out the provision of anticipatory bail for the accused and also gives the investigation officer the freedom to arrest the accused without taking approval or permission from the senior police officials. Some questions are that is what are the recent updates in the SC/ST Act? Supreme Court in February 2020 upheld the validity of SC/ST Act 2018 after a petition was filed to strike down the act. Another question like what are the other names given to SC/ST Act is the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocity Act 1918 is also called as Prevention of Atrocities POA Act and Atrocities Act and National like that. So these are all about Scheduled Caste and the Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocity Act Amendment Bill. So, if you move our next slide, that is, we already discussed the NCSC, National Commission for Scheduled Castes, and the composition, functions, and also discussed the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes and composition and functions. And we move on National Commission for Backward Classes, that is NCBC. It's established on 14th August 1993. It is a constitutional body under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It was formed under the National Commission of Backward Classes Act 1993. This commission was formed as an initiative for the investigating the conditions and difficulties of the socially and educationally backward classes and thus making appropriate recommendations. So, what is the highlights of NCBC, National Commission for Backward Classes? Or its formation as 14th August 1993, I already discussed, and headquarters Delhi, and chairman is Bhagwan Lal Sahani. So, how was NCBC formed? The National Commission for Backward Classes was an outcome of the Indira Sahani case, Mandal Commission of 1992. In the final verdict of the Mandal Commission, the Supreme Court of India had addressed the formation of NCBC as a statutory body, headquartered in Delhi. The National Commission for Backward Classes was established on August 14, 1993 under the NCBC Act of 1993. NCBC in the year 2015 proposed that a person having an annually family income of up to 15 lakhs and belonging to the OBC caste will be considered as the minimum ceiling for OBC. It is recommended that OBC can be subdivided into backwards, more backwards, and extremely backward categories. As per NCBC, the number of backward castes in the year 2016 increased to 5013 in the central list of OBCs. So, if you focus on this slide, the structure of the NCBC. The National Commission for Backward Classes consists of 5 regulatory members, which include the chairperson, vice chairperson, and the 3 other members with a tenure period of 3 years. The current regulatory members are Chairperson Bhagwan Lal Sahani, Vice Chairperson Lokesh Kumar, and Member 1 Sudha Yadav, Member 2 Kushlendra Singh, and Member 3 Taloju Achari. So, if you focus on our next slide, that is the functions of the NCBC, National Commission for Backward Classes, to investigate and monitor all the matters of the socially and educationally backward classes under the Constitution or under any other law that are related to the proper working of the safeguards provided, and also to participate and advise actively on the socio-economic development of the socially backward classes along with evaluating the progress of their development. And it annually presents the reports based on the working of the safeguards to the President. If any of those reports related to any matter which is concerned with the state government, a copy of that report is forwarded to the state government. NCBC is responsible for the protection, welfare, development, and advancement of the socially and educationally backward classes. NCBC is an important statutory body of India that investigates the conditions and difficulties of the socially and educationally backward classes. And if we focus other important and most important national commission, that is National Human Rights Commission, that is NHRC. The National Human Rights Commission or NHRC is a stand-alone entity of the Government of India with the mission of promoting and protecting human rights. It is a statutory body mentioned in the Constitution of India that was established in 1993 under the Protection of Human Rights Act. So, what is the National Human Rights Commission? That is the National Human Rights Commission established in 1993. It is an independent statutory body as per the provisions of the Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993, which was amended in 2006. Human rights are an indispensable part of society, and human rights in India are watched by NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. National Human Rights Commission acts as a watchdog of human rights in the country. The NHRC looks over the rights that are related to life, dignity, liberty, and equality of the individual that is defined in Section 2(1) of the PHR Act. They are guaranteed by the Constitution of India, embodied in the international conventions, and are enforceable by the courts of India as well. So, NHRC was established in compliance with the Paris Principles of Human Rights 1991, which were adopted for the promotion and protection of human rights and were endorsed by United Nations as its General Assembly of 1993. So, what is the history of National Human Rights Commission? In 1948, the UN, United Nations, adopted the UDHR, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In 1991, the Paris Principles were established by the National Human Rights Institutions, that is NHRIs. In 1993, the United Nations adopted these Paris Principles as its General Assembly. In 1993, India enacted the Protection of Human Rights Act. This led to formation of the National Human Rights Commission. The Protection of Human Rights Act also allowed state governments to establish the State Human Rights Commission. So, what is the composition of National Human Rights Commission? The National Human Rights Commission NHRC is composed of a chairperson and 8 other members. Those 8 members are 4 full-time members, 4 deemed members. Members of NHRC: Chairman of NHRC, retired Chief Justice of India, and member 1 who is or has been a judge of Supreme Court of India, and member 2 one who is or has been a Chief Justice of a High Court, and 2 member candidates with the knowledge of practical experience in the matters of human rights, deemed members, ex officio members. And deemed members are chairpersons of the below national commissions, that is National Commission for Minorities, National Commission for Scheduled Castes, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, and National Commission for Women, etc. So, appointment of National Human Rights Commission members: a selection committee will recommend the candidates to the President. The selection committee includes Prime Minister is chairman, Speaker of Lok Sabha, Union Home Minister, and Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha. These all are part of selection committee. Leaders of the opposition in both houses of the parliament also took place. So, what is the present chairperson is H.L. Dattu, and we already discussed about the composition. And what is the powers and functions of NHRC, that is National Human Rights Commission? The functions of the National Human Rights Commission is stated in Section 12 of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. Includes inquiry into complaints of violation of human rights or negligence in the prevention of such violations by a public servant, and the Commission also studies treaties and international instruments of human rights and makes recommendations for their effective implementation of the government. And also NHRC can investigate any complaints related to violation of human rights in India either suo motu or after receiving a petition. And NHRC can interfere in any judicial process that involves any allegation of violation of human rights. It can visit any person, any prison or institute under the control of the state governments to observe the living conditions of inmates. It can further make recommendation based on its observations of the authorities. National Human Rights Commission can review the provisions of the Constitution that safeguard human rights and can suggest necessary retrospective measures. So, research in the field of human rights is also promoted by the National Human Rights Commission of India. Human rights awareness and literacy through different media are promoted by National Human Rights Commission in various sectors of society. And National Human Rights Commission has the power to recommend suitable steps that can prevent violation of human rights in India to both central as well as state governments. The President of India gets an annual report from the NHRC which is laid before both houses of the parliament. So, if we focus on what is the limitations of NHRC, the recommendations made by the NHRC means National Human Rights Commission are not binding. Violation of human rights by private parties cannot be considered under National Human Rights Commission jurisdiction, and National Human Rights Commission does not have the power to penalize the authorities that don't implement its recommended orders, and three of the National Human Rights Commission members are judges, which give the functioning of the commission a judicial touch, and the other members that are recommended by the selection committee may not necessarily be human rights experts. And the National Human Rights Commission does not consider the following cases, that is cases that are older than 1 year, and cases that are anonymous and pseudonymous or vague or frivolous cases, and cases pertaining to service matters. And the National Human Rights Commission has limited jurisdiction over cases related to armed force. The National Human Rights Commission faces other issues like excesses cases or complaints, insufficient funds, bureaucratic functioning style, etc. So, what is the major issues related to National Human Rights Commission? India faces human rights violation on a large scale due to various reasons. The National Human Rights Commission takes up most of the issues around the country. Some of them are arbitrary arrest and detention, and custodial torture, and child labor, and violence and discrimination against women and children, and extrajudicial killing, and excessive powers, and sexual violence and abuse, and LGBTQ community rights, and lesbian, gays, full form, and SC/ST disabled people, and other religious minority issues, and labor rights and right to work, and conflict induced internal displacement, and manual scavenging, and also read about the protection of children from sexual offences act POSCO. All are etc. All these related to human rights issues, major issues in human rights facing in India. So, some questions related to national human rights in competitive exams are: who is the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission in India currently? The National Human Rights Commission NHRC is composed of a chairperson and 8 other members. Justice L.H. Dattu is the current chairman of the NHRC. And next question: what is the role of NHRC? The National Human Rights Commission or NHRC is a stand-alone entity of the Government of India with the mission of promoting and protecting human rights. The functions of the National Human Rights Commission is stated in Section 12 of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. Headquarters is in New Delhi. All this about the National Human Rights Commission. And this is the structure of National Human Rights Commission we already discussed. And if you focus on the National Commission for Women, the National Commission for Women was formed with the intention to establish an equal and just livelihood for women. By making legal and constitutional amendments for women in India, the violence against women is a fundamental violation of human rights across nations, societies, cultures, and classes, and to stop this violation of the fundamental right, this commission was formed. Problems faced by the women in the country has been one of the biggest concerns of the government and other authorities. Over the years, many commissions has been set up the government to look into the welfare of women in the country. According to the reports of these commissions, all of them state the necessity of setting up an apex body for reviewing and addressing the grievances of women in the country. The demand was setting up a body persisted for long and ultimately to keep the interest for the people. The National Commission for Women Bill 1990 was introduced in the Lok Sabha on 22nd May 1990. The National Commission for Women was set up in 1992 under the National Commission Act 1990. This body was established to review the constitutional and legal safeguards for women. It recommends the remedial legislative measures and facilitates redressal of grievances and advises the government on all policy matters affecting women. It enjoys all powers of civil court. The first commission was constituted on 31st January 1992 as Jayanti Patnaik as the chairperson. Alok Rawat IAS is the first male member of the National Commission for Women. His appointment filled the fourth seat on the five-member body. Mrs. Rekha Sharma is the current chairperson of the National Commission for Women. She took over Lalita Kumaramangalam as the new chairperson in September 2018. The National Commission for Women is an important topic on all competitive exams. So, what is the composition of National Commission for Women? The commission must consist of a minimum number of members, which includes a chairperson, a member secretary, and other five members. Chairperson, the central government should nominate the chairperson, and five members are also to be nominated by the central government from amongst the person of ability, integrity, and standing. They should possess experience in various fields like law or legislation, trade unionism, and management of industry, potential of women, women's voluntary organization, education, and administration, economic development of social good being. So, it also member secretary. The central government also nominates member secretary. He or she should be either an expert in the field of management, organization, or an officer who is a member. So, what is the functions of National Commission for Women? The National Commission for Women enjoys the powers of a civil court. It investigates and examines the matters related to the safeguards ensured for feminine society under the Constitution of India. It took complaints suo motu notice of issues related to the non-implementation of laws and non-enforcement of laws and non-compliances of policy decisions. Guidelines enacted and aimed at mitigating hardships, ensuring the welfare, and then take up issues arising out of matter with the concerned authorities. And National Commission for Women members take part in the planning process of a socio-economic development of women, propose measures to encourage their representation in all spheres, and review their advancement. It also examines the safeguards provided for women in the Constitution and other laws, study their working, recommended amendments to meet any inadequacies or deficiencies, and advocate measures for effecting implementation. The Parivarik Mahila Lok Adalat PMLA is an innovative component with its roots in the traditional Nyaya Panchayats. It is created by National Commission for Women for the redressal and speedy disposal of cases. It has taken up 7,500 cases so far. The essential feature of PMLA is cordial mutual settlement and flexibility in implementation, aiming to power women in the justice delivery mechanism. So, what is the main functions are investigation and examination, that is, investigate and examine all the matters related to the safeguards provided for the women under the Constitution and other laws, and presentation of reports, its related table reports to the central government every year, and at such other times as the commission may deem fit, reports can working of those safeguards, and recommendations are it's like make in such reports and recommendations for the effective accomplishment of those safeguards for enhancing the conditions of the women by the union or any state, and review every now and then the current provision of the constitution and other laws distressing the women, and prescribe alterations and suggest curative legislative measures meet any break, inadequacies and incapacity in such legislations. And the most important function is cases of violation. Take up cases of infringement of the provisions of the constitution and of other laws relating to the women with the relevant authorities. And also the main function is suo motu notice. It looks into complaints and takes suo motu notice of matters relating to deprivation of women's rights and non implementation of the laws and non compliances of policy decisions guaranteeing this welfare for women's society. Special studies and investigations, it conducts special studies or investigation on the concerning issues or circumstances emerging out of segregation and outrages against ladies and recognize the limitations in order to suggest techniques for their expulsion. And also research, undertake the promotional and educational research so as to propose ways to ensuring due representation of women in all fields and identifies the factors responsible for the impeding the support services and technologies for the reducing drug and professional health hazards and the escalating their efficiency. And participation in all spheres, particularly in planning also a function. It take part and advise on the planning process of socio-economic development of women. And another function is evaluation. It assess the progress of the development of women's society, the union and the state. And another function is inspection, investigate or cause to be inspected a jail, remand home, women's establishment or other places of guardianship where ladies are kept as detainees. And funding also is a function, funding litigation relating issues affecting a large body of women. And reporting also is a function, make periodical reports on any issue pertaining to women and in particular various difficulties under which women toil. So if we focus, what are the drawbacks of National Commission for Women? It has no actual legislative powers. It only has the powers to suggest amendments and submit reports which are not obligatory on a state or union governments. It does not the power to choose its own members. The power selecting members is vested with the union government, and nature of the country's volatile political scenario tends the commission to be politicized. It is reliant on financial assistance from the union government, and this could compromise the independence of the commission. The jurisdiction of the commission is not operating in Jammu and Kashmir, and considering the current political unrest and human rights infringement in the region, the presence of commission is vital. And complaint and counseling unit of National Commission for Women, if you focus on this cell is the core unit of the commission and pro members. The power selecting members is vested with the union government, and the nature of the country's volatile political scenario, the jurisdiction of the commission is not operating cesses, and complaints received oral, written or suo motu under section 10 of the NCW Act. The complaints received relate to domestic violence, harassment, dowry, torture, desertion, bigamy, rape and refusal to register FIR, cruelty by husband, deprivation, gender discrimination and sexual harassment at workplace. The complaints are dealt with the tackled in various ways, such as investigations by the police are expedited and monitored. Disaggregated data are made available to various state authorities to facilitate action. Family disputes are resolved or compromised through counseling. So these are all about the National Commission for Women. And just focus on our next slide, that is National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, that is NCPCR. It is a statutory body established in 2007 under an Act of Parliament. The Commissions for Protection of Child Rights CPCR Act 2005. In this uh, in this slide you can read all about the NCPCR. Its functions are important and relating to child rights in the country. This is the part of the social justice and also part of the polity. So, the NCPCR is a body that works towards achieving a child rights centric approach in all the laws, programs, policies, and administrative mechanisms in India. It functions under the Ministry of Women and Child Development of the central government. It strives to ensure that all laws and policies in the country are in consonance with the rights of the children as emphasized by the Indian Constitution as well as with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. A child is defined as an any person between the ages of 0 and 18 years. The Commission acknowledges the universality and inviolability of child rights. It focuses on the children that form a part of the most vulnerable sections of society. The Commission sees every right of the child as equally important and hence does not grade the rights according to importance. So, what is the NCPCR Constitution? The NCPCR has been constituted by the government as an act of parliament as mentioned above. Hence, it is a statutory organization. It consists following members: chairperson, chairperson of eminence and who has an excellent exemplary work record in child welfare, and six members, a minimum of two women members, and should have experience in the fields of education, child health, care, welfare, or child development, juvenile justice, or care of neglected or marginalized children or children with disabilities, and elimination of child labor or children in distress, and child psychology or sociology. So, what is the laws relating in children? NCPCR means in this context, NCPCR functions. The act that constituted the NCPCR laid down its functions and mandates, which are enumerated, assess and review the safeguards that are provided for child rights protection in India under existing laws and also suggest measures for implementing them effectively. Present reports on the working of the laws in this domain to the central government as and when necessary. Inquire cases of child rights violation and initiate proceedings. Study the factors that prevent the enjoyments of rights of children impacted by terrorism, riots, natural calamities, communal violence, trafficking, HIV/AIDS, torture and exploitation, and maltreatment, prostitution, and pornography, and suggested remedial measures for them. Enquire into the needs of the children requiring special care and protection, such as disadvantaged and marginalized children, children in conflict with the law, children of prisoners, and children without families, and also recommended remedial measures thereof. Review current policies with respect to the children's right and protection by studying treaties and international instruments and suggest changes as needed. So, conduct research in the field of child rights, advocate child rights, and promote, disseminate the idea through mass campaigns, seminars, etc., and undertake investigation into specific complaints received from children or anyone else on their behalf, and encourage the incorporation of child rights in school curriculums and train teachers in that respect. The Commission also mandated the responsibilities under two other acts, namely Protection of Children from Sexual Offences POSCO Act 2012 and Right to Education Act 2019. So, if you focus on some questions related to NCPCR, who is the chairman of the National Commission for Protection of Children Rights, that is Shruti Kakkar is the chairperson of the NCPCR, and the role for the NCPCR under the RTE Act is assess and review the safeguard of this act provides the protection of the child rights. And what is the aim of RTE? The RTE Act makes it obligatory on the part of the government to ensure admission, attendance, and completion of elementary education by all children falling in the age bracket 6 to 14 years. So, this is all about the NCPCR, that is National Commission for Protection of Children and Protection of Child Rights. So, if we focus on National Commission for Minorities, it is nothing but NCW. So, Constitution of India doesn't define the word minority, but has used the word minorities considering religion and language of person. For minorities, Constitution of India has envisaged a number of rights and safeguards to provide enough equality and to dwindle the discrimination. Makers have spelled out various things in fundamental rights, that is part 3, and directive principles of state policy part 4, and also fundamental duties, that is part 4a. However, with rising right and rising wedge between right and left, and also the ephemeral political aspiration of various political parties, have diluted the discrimination safeguards. So, this is the introduction about National Commission for Minorities, that is NCM. If we focus this slide, the present chairperson of National Commission for Minority is Syed Ghuilani Hassan Rizvi. The Union government set up the National Commission for Minorities (NCM) under the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. 6 religious communities, that is Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, Zoroastrians, that is Parsis, and Jains, have been notified in the Gazette of India as minority communities by the Union government all over India. Original notification of 1993 was for 5 religious communities, that is Sikhs, Buddhists, Parsis, Christians, and Muslims. United Nations Declaration. The National Commission for Minorities adheres to the United Nations Declaration of 18 December 1992, which states that states shall protect the existence of the national or ethnic, cultural, religious, and linguistic identity of minorities within their respective territories and encourage conditions for the promotion of the identity. So, what is the functions of the National Commission for Minorities? Evaluate the progress of the development of minorities under the Union and states. Monitor the working of the safeguards provided in the Constitution and in laws enacted by the Parliament and the state legislatures, and make recommendations for the effective implementation of safeguards for the protection of the interests of minorities by the central government and state government. Look into specific complaints regarding deprivation of rights and safeguards of the minorities and take up such matters with the appropriate authorities, and cause studies to be undertaken into problems arising out of any discrimination against minorities and recommended measures for their removal. Conduct studies, research, and analysis on the issues relating to socio-economic and educational development of minorities. Suggest appropriate measures in respect of any minority to be undertaken by the central government or the state government, and make periodical or special reports to the central government on any matter pertaining to minorities and in particular the difficulties confronted by them. Any other matter which may be referred to it by the central government. The Commission has the following powers: summoning and enforcing the attendance of any person from any part of India and examining him on oath, requiring the discovery and production of any document and receiving evidence on affidavit, and requestioning any public record or copy thereof from the any court or office, issuing commissions for the acts. So, what is the composition of the commission? A chairperson, a vice chairperson, and 5 members to be nominated by the central government from the amongst persons of the eminence, ability, and integrity, provided that 5 members, including the chairperson, shall be from amongst the minority communities. So, rights and safeguards of minorities. Although Indian Constitution does not define word minority, but it has provided constitutional safeguards and fundamental rights to minorities. Under Fundamental Rights Part 3 of Indian Constitution, Indian state is committed to administer these rights which can be enforced by judiciary. Right of any section of the citizens to conserve its distinct language, script or culture. That is Article 29(1). And Article 31, according to this article, right of all religious and linguistic minorities to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. According to Article 32, Article 30, under this Article 2 clause, freedom of minority managed educational institution from discrimination in the matter of receiving aid from the state. Under Part 17, official languages of Indian Constitution, rights for any section of population for language spoken by them, it is in Article 347. And Article 350A, according to this act, provision for facilities of instruction in mother tongue. And according to Article 350B, provisioning a special officer for linguistic monitoring and defining his duties. So, according to in our syllabus, BA second year, it is one more important topic related to this minority section, that is Sachar Committee report. So, on March 9, 2005, the then Prime Minister issued a notification for the constitution of a high-level committee to prepare a report on the social, economic and educational status of Muslim community of India. Recommendation contained in the report of the high-level committee on social, economic and educational status of Muslim community of India, headed by Justice Rajinder Sachar, retired. So, need for transparency, monitoring and data availability. Create a national data bank where all relevant data for various socio-religious categories are maintained. Enhancing the legal basis for providing equal opportunities. Set up an equal opportunity commission to look into grievances of deprived groups like minorities. So, according to such recommendations, one more recommendation is shared spaces, that is need to enhance diversity. The idea of providing certain incentives to a diversity index should be explored. And one more recommendation on education is a process of evaluating the content of the school textbooks needs to be initiated to purge them of explicit and implicit content that may impart inappropriate social values, especially religious intolerance. Need to ensure that all children in the age of 0 to 14 have access to free and high quality education. High quality government schools should be set up in all areas of Muslim concentration. Exclusive schools for girls should be set up, particularly for the 9 to 12 standards. This would be facilitate higher participation of Muslim girls in school education. In co-education schools, more women teachers need to be appointed. Provide primary education in Urdu in areas where Urdu speaking population is concentrated, and mechanisms to link madrasas with higher secondary school boards. Recognize degrees from madrasas for eligibility in defense service, civil service and banking examinations. Increase employment share of Muslims, particularly where there is a great deal of public dealing. Enhancing participation in governance. Appropriate state level laws can be enacted to ensure minority representation in local bodies. Create a nomination procedure to increase participation of minorities in public bodies. And other recommendations are establish a delimitation procedure that does not reserve constituencies with high minority population for SCs. Enhancing access to credit and government programs. Provide financial and other support to initiate built around occupancies where Muslims are concentrated and that have growth potential. And improve participation and share of minorities, particularly Muslims, in business of regular commercial banks. And also improving employment opportunities and conditions. The committee suggested that policies should sharply focus on inclusive development and mainstreaming of the community while respecting diversity. So, if we focus on related in this related context, one more important topic related in minorities is the National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions. Under the Ministry of Human Resource Development was established through an ordinance promulgated in the year 2004 for the welfare of the minorities mentioned in the National Common Minimum Program. The ordinance was later replaced by the NCMEI Act in 2005. The commission is quasi judicial authority. It has been endowed with the powers of a civil court. Only Supreme Court exercising writ jurisdiction under Article 32 and High Courts under Article 226 and 227 of the Constitution of India can entertain any suit, application or proceeding in respect of any other made by the Commission. Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Buddhist, Parsi and Jain have been notified as 6 minority communities in India by the central government. Its importance to note that no linguistic minority has been notified till date. Therefore, linguistic minorities remain outside the jurisdiction of the Commission. The Commission has adjudicatory and recommendatory functions such as to advise the central government and the state governments on any question relating to the educational rights of the minorities referred to it, to sumo motu inquire or inquiry on a petition presented to it by any minority educational institution or any person on its behalf into complaints regarding deprivation or violation of rights of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice and any dispute relating to affiliation to a university. So, this is a very particular important topic regarding in syllabus of BA. So, please focus on this very carefully and listen very carefully. Review the safeguards provided by the Constitution or any law that is in force for the time being for the protection of educational rights of the minorities and ensure their effective implementation by recommending measures for the same. So, what is the composition of the commission? Commission is composed by chairman and 3 other members. The chairman should have been judge of High Court and must belonging a minority community. The members shall also belong to a minority community and are persons of eminence, ability and integrity. Minority protection and India. Minorities conditions, their appeasement, harassment and the politics of it is been seen in the news today, and hence its relevance for all competitive exams also. So, in this context, recent political developments have put the issue of minority appeasements and minority harassment back into forefront. Recent increase in hate crimes has also triggered debates about the need for a separate legislation for protect minorities against lynching and hate crimes. What is the background of this? Article 1 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Across the globe, the anti immigrant or anti minority sentiments are on the rise. The shooter responsibility for the Masare at Even Paso claimed to have been troubled by minorities gaining more power after alleged unregulated immigration. Europe has also witnessed a few anti minority hate crimes. A same sex couple were attacked in London recently while they were traveling in the bus. Brexit campaign in UK also strong anti immigration messages. The rising civil unrest and conflicts in many parts of the world are causing a rise in refugees. Climate change has also forced a large section of the population to seek shelter in other countries. But when such refugees reach relatively safe countries, they are targeted for the religion, race, ethnicity, etc. If we focus on Indian context, even though the term minority has been used in our constitution, the constitution has not attempted to define it. The National Commission for Minorities Act 1992 in a section 2C of the Act defines a minority as a community notified as such by the central government. India, this applies to Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Zoroastrians, Jain religions. As per TMA Pi Foundation versus State of Karnataka case, in the Supreme Court, a minority, either linguistic or religious, is determinable only by reference to the demography of the state and not by taking into consideration the population of the country as a whole. When we discuss the term minorities, we should not limit ourselves to religious minorities. Linguistic minorities, transgender, etc., are also considered minorities in the larger socio political framework. Simple numerical majority minority constructs fail to include regional like non-dominant tribe groups in the northeast, linguistic like Bengali speakers in Swell East Pakistan, and other pattern of life follower ethnic minorities. Recently, due to the rise of majoritarian policy impulses, the nation has witnessed a spike in hate crimes against minorities. This has been amplified by targeted hate speech and fake news against such communities. People holding responsible political positions also have been repeatedly caught using fake or questionable sources to make false claims. This atmosphere has been further vitiated by irresponsible, high decibel TV debates designated to cause shock and outrage. So, what is the solution, or what is the suggestions, or what is the way forward? In order to protect our constitutional values of individual dignity, equality, and liberty, we must strive to discourage and remove hate filled messages from our society. Political leadership must take a leadership role in disowning hateful elements within their party and uphold their commitment to our constitution. A comprehensive anti hate legislation and policy must be brought to act as a deterrent against hate crimes. And recent positive developments like discrimination of homosexuality have shown that our society is empathetic towards minorities. A few antisocial elements must not be allowed to jeopardize gains made in this regard. So, this is all about minorities, and till now we discussed about national commissions. In this context, we discussed the constitutional bodies, extra constitutional bodies, and also statutory bodies and executive bodies, and also we discussed the national commissions, composition of national commissions, and scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes prevention of atrocity acts amendment bill 2018 2015, and also all national commissions chairmans. We discussed all these national commissions chairmans and human rights, women, minority, backward class, SC/ST, child, and we detailedly discussed about national commission for scheduled castes and their chairman and functions, and national commission for scheduled tribes and their composition and the functions, and also discussed about national commission for backward class and the composition and the functions of the NCBC, and also discussed about the national commission, national human rights commission, that is NHRC, composition and functions and structure also we discussed, and also we focus on national commission for women and the composition and the functions of the NCAW, and also we detailedly discussed about national commission for protection of child labour, NCPCR, and the composition also, and also we detailedly discussed the national commission for minorities, NCM, composition and functions, and we also discussed the major parts of the minorities sections, and also discussed about some parts of syllabus, that is the national commission for minority educational institutions, and also the minorities. We discussed about detailed discussed about minority protection in India also. So these are all about the national commissions for the India. I hope you all enjoyed my session. We will discuss on more class or one more session with we will discuss all major things and related things with next session. Until then, thank you once again, and once again thank you everyone.